This is the Connect podcast, where business meets leadership. We talk with influential newsmakers, business leaders, and decision makers important to New York's economy. Chelsea Lemon,
hi.
Welcome to the Connect podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Senior Director of Government Affairs here at the Business Council. A lot under your portfolio, including financial services, which you did a report for
Back
almost 2 years ago now.
2023?
I believe so. December, if I'm not mistaken. It was the fall.
Around then, fall, October.
Another report that we're here to talk about today, the Blueprint Report.
Yes.
Let's start with that. Public Policy Institute, the arm of the Business Council, put the report together. You helped compile it. Tell us a little bit about the report and what you did to compile it.
Yeah, so the impetus for the report is, I think, for so long we've heard from businesses about the regulatory environment and how hard it is to do business here in New York. And so what we really wanted to do is pair the quantitative data with the qualitative data. And so we hired an outside consultant, Economic Leadership. They came in and they conducted a lot of quantitative analysis about where New York is in terms of its business climate, out-migration, taxes, quality of life, cost of living, everything that you would look at. And then we also went around, we did, I think it was 10 in-person roundtables, different regions across the state. We did almost a dozen industry Zooms, and we got the qualitative feedback from people as to what they're dealing with when they're doing business here in New York, and how we can improve things.
And the report itself, and you mentioned just the fact that we're across the state, a lot of different sectors, right? Construction, healthcare, all that.
Everything.
Interesting that there was some overall arching messages that touched on each region of the state, and then there were some specific ones. And one that stuck out to me was a small example was in Corning, Elmira area. They don't have a major airport.
Yeah.
But they have a multi-billion-dollar company in Corning. They have other sectors there, but not a major airport that they can get a lot of talent easily there to Corning. So just small things like that. And then, of course, there's the overarching themes, taxes, regulatory process. So that report comes out last fall-ish.
Yep.
The governor's office at first was a little, looked at it and said, maybe, are you blaming us? Is this this isn't an us problem. This is an all-encompassing problem. And we explained that to them. We said, that's what we want it to be, we want this to be something that we can use as a tool together, the business community, the legislature, the governor, to fix things.
Right.
It's
this
just
is all about partnership, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't just, hey, just cut taxes.
Yeah.
Like you always hear.
Everyone has a responsibility in this. And, I think it for us, stepping in as the business community and saying, hey, there's a problem here and we want to be a part of the solution and we want to partner with you to do that. The governor's office was very receptive to the suggestions that we have in the report. This isn't something that, the over-regulation of New York State and the business climate right now is not something that you can put on one governor or one legislature or one lawmaker. It's a compilation of things that have built up over decades at this point. And, I think when you talk to people, when you look at a specific piece of legislation or, a few different bills passed last year that impact business climate or the regulatory environment, when you look at one specific bill, it might just seem like, oh, that's nothing. It's just another piece of paper that a business has to fill out. But when you look at the culmination of everything, it's really like a death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah, and it was, again, something where we said, let's work together and move this forward. And then the big part of the report was there's recommendations here.
Yep.
And some of those recommendations, a lot of them were on the regulatory process, which was something we wanted to put up front because it's something that the governor specifically did not need legislative approval to do a lot of things. And she's listening to us.
She's fully embraced it, and it's awesome. So part of the report, our recommendations were to use Empire AI, something, that we think could look at all of the regulations on the books and find, areas where there's redundancy or something's, just completely outdated.
And speaking of regulation, so there's a lot of them. 300, if I remember.
There's over 300,000, 17 million words, and only second to California.
So basically, essentially,
And our legislature is the most active, the most prolific in the nation. In the 23-24 session, they introduced over 24,000 bills. And so when you look at the regulatory environment from a business perspective, not only are you dealing with everything that's on the books right now, but you're looking towards, the future and, different pieces of legislation that are coming through the pipeline. When you look at that enormity of 24,000 bills in, 1-2 year legislative session, it's so hard to keep up, especially as a small business. You don't have the legal or compliance, arm in order to keep up.
Yeah, and when you say the 300,000 regulations, technically, if you're not following all of them, you're breaking a law or a regulation. So who has time to read 10 regulations if you're a business owner, let alone 300,000? So, and a lot of them,
Right.
though, redundant, potentially redundant, outdated, right? So we started there. I cut you off, but we started there with the regulatory process, and she's starting to listen. So, or starting to, take hold of this, right? And wanting to work with
Yeah,
us.
she's fully embraced it. So within her state of the state this year and within her budget, she has made a commitment to addressing regulatory reform. And so right now, actually just last week, they announced that they are opening up a online portal. I think it's called Express New York or
Express NY, yeah.
Express NY. And through April 3rd, they're looking for feedback from stakeholders as to regulations that are redundant or burdensome, ways that they can streamline regulations in order to make the process work better for business. And so I think there's a difference between regulations that they might be able to tackle through executive authority and the statutory regulations. And right now, I think that they're looking to really address those that they can do through executive action.
And a few of them. So she had her State of the State address was first. That was early January. Talked about SECRA on there, certain housing and infrastructure projects where SECRA is going to expedite and streamline the process and timelines and save money. SECRA was a big one.
It's huge. When we look at the goals of wanting to build more housing and more infrastructure and transportation and bring more projects into New York, we need to look at those processes that are holding up that development and that progress. And so I think, the reforms that she has for SECRA are a huge step in the right direction.
And for SECRA, do you know it off the top of your head here? You didn't know there would be a quiz.
I didn't know there would be a quiz. And, this isn't my
Sure.
area of expertise. I think it's State Environmental Quality Review.
And I don't know what
something.
the A is. I believe you got 4 out of 5.
Man, all right.
Yeah, 3 out of 5. What did you get? 3, 2, 3, 4 out of 5. But essentially what it's red tape.
Yes.
And it's
Exactly.
holding up projects. It's costing time and money.
Exactly. I think, when we look at housing across the state, when we're wanting to bring in more projects, you need more housing for employees, for businesses to grow within the area. And even just to get those projects off the ground. And so having these reforms within her budget and, a priority for her is huge for the business community.
And the procurement process as well, wanting to streamline that. And essentially what that is just
Yep.
getting the okay from New York to do something.
Well, when we were doing these roundtables, I'm sure you heard it when you were traveling with us too, is, Heather likes to reference this one.
The pizza?
The pizza. So I forget where we were, Long Island or
I think it was
somewhere
Long Island.
downstate, I think. And someone said, I put a bid in for this, $200 million, development project. And it just kind of went into the ether, right? I don't know where it is right now, but I ordered a pizza last night and I could see when the restaurant received the pizza, when it was being made, when it was done, when it was in the car, and I could track the delivery driver, to my house to know exactly where it is. And so I think that's really missing. We haven't digitized the procurement process, any process really in New York. And so if there's ways that we can modernize the system and make sure that, when people want to do business in New York, they know where they stand and that communication is available to them, it's only going to drive more business into New York.
As a statewide chamber of commerce, we belong to an association, a national association. I go to these meetings that are with other state chambers from around the country, and they're all often surprised by two things. One, that there is no, and I don't know what the exact word is here, help me out, but basically cost of the bill that you put on the floor, no matter what the bill is. right? There's no
Fiscal analysis.
There's no fiscal analysis. And we'll get members who will call, who have business in other states and say, we'll have the fiscal analysis ready for you. Or what do you need for the fiscal analysis process in
Yeah.
New York? And they, I think, are shocked to learn that we don't really do that here.
Well, technically, when you look at a bill, there's a sponsors memo, and within the sponsors memo, there's always a section for state and local government economic impact or whatever. And so often that is either a TBD or it's a none. But not only, is that likely not true in terms of the municipal or state impact, but it's not true for the overall cost to a business. We're not looking at that impact holistically, right?
And one of the other things too, so I'll finish my thought. The second thing that they're really shocked about is the timeline of projects.
Yes.
Like I've said to them that, given the pizza example, and they look at me and they say, "You're talking about a $500 million project." Like
Yeah.
that's, I don't care how big the company is, that's a lot of money, right?
It's a lot of money, and time is money, right?
Sure.
We also heard, in other industry Zooms, talking about process, whether it's, a huge project like that, or if there's a company like an insurance company that's looking to open a new line of business in New York, kind of that process and not knowing where they're at within the process. And compared to other states, I think New York takes, a year or so compared to, another state that might be a few weeks or a few months like tops. It's
Not efficient.
it's not efficient at all.
I wouldn't think so. And we hear the stories from the members. Can you help us with this? Where is this now? And you
Yeah.
would think, trying to build a chip fab plant that's going to bring in tens of thousands of jobs is, we hear it all the time.
It's not only a lost opportunity for a business, right? It's a lost opportunity for our economy and for consumers and for workers. When you're not consistently growing and meeting the demands of the workforce or of the economy, then you're losing out.
And another thing is now you've opened yourself up to potentially businesses leaving. And some in the legislature, and I think large groups in the legislature kind of put this idea to the side and say it's not really a major issue, even though the data is there that people are leaving. And there's a thought that, and we were talking earlier, that, businesses will just stay here because it's New York. Well, we see every day that they're maybe not picking up shop and taking the whole house
Yeah.
with them, but they're not reinvesting here. They're not
Correct.
expanding here.
Right.
Something we're seeing, and this is late February. Now the mayor of Dallas, he's going to make a pitch to New York State businesses, calling it Y'all Street. Instead of Wall Street,
Cute.
Y'all Street.
Wall Street, okay.
And essentially what they're going to do is make a pitch and say Dallas is better, right, than New York. And they're going to come up here. They're making no bones about it. They're having a big press conference announcing that they're going to come here. So they're going to get two bites at the apple of the media in this, which is great marketing. So they're going to come up here and ask businesses to move down to Dallas. We already see that they're moving to Florida. I immediately saw that, and for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but my initial thought was not a lot of people in Albany are going to give a damn, unfortunately. So and that's again part of this. Why don't we want it? Why is it that other states look at our businesses and want them, but yet we look at our businesses and make it difficult for them to do business? And give the governor credit because, as we talked about, so that's a long way of getting around
Yeah.
to Express, right? So a little bit more about Express. You mentioned it. Now this is a whole statewide initiative. It's not just hey, business council, you had a couple ideas, let's put some in the budget. It's just this whole statewide initiative, expediting the process and regulations to enable and streamline services, modernize, reform outdated burdensome regulations that we talked about, accelerating housing and infrastructure development, supporting small business, reducing regulatory delays, all that stuff. So deadline
It's quite
April
the
3rd.
list.
It is quite the list. So that I feel like that's huge because in the 7 years I've been here, we've never had this type of feedback before. And you've been here 3 or 4 years. We haven't in the last 3 or 4 years. How big is this?
No, it's huge. And not only that, but she is also tackling auto insurance rates. Businesses are dealing with auto insurance rates on the daily, right? And that's a huge cost of doing business. And to see her really go out there and say, this is an affordability issue, not only for consumers in New York, but for businesses in New York, with that entire list too and everything that she's doing on the regulatory side, it's a big step in the right direction.
It's got to be a boost for businesses. I mean,
I hope so.
every day. I mean, every day.
Yeah.
They're not every day used to somebody in Albany saying, "Hey, let's make life better for you."
Yeah, and I think we have to keep up the optimism, right?
Absolutely. It's not all doom and gloom.
Progress is not, something that happens overnight.
And there are 3 branches of the legislature.
That's
that,
right,
we can't just. Yeah. All right. So the blueprint we've held now. Well, several. I mean, the roundtables itself. But once the report was released, we did some press around it, a couple of events, a couple more planned. The goal of the blueprint is to live forever. I mean, ideally,
Living, breathing document, as
as
Heather likes
loves
to
to say it. I mean, ideally, you'd want everything done in there.
Yeah.
Probably not ideally going to happen, but the point is we're going to continue to beat the drum.
Definitely. We prioritized 4 different recommendations for this year that we hit on. So the Empire AI for regulatory reform. We'd love to see the repeal of the scaffold law, which I don't think is going to happen this year, but, living, breathing document. We'll continue to beat that drum. Gore, bring back kind of, this regulatory reform so that there's a fiscal analysis for every bill that comes through. So these are things that we're working on, but this is a broader, document. There were over 40 recommendations within the report, ranging, from addressing our energy costs and availability to childcare, which is another huge issue for businesses as they're looking to expand the workforce. It's a workforce issue, making sure that we have adequate childcare so that employees can go work, and employers have
particularly access
the headcount that they need.
The big thing is the access,
It's
right?
access
to the childcare.
Access and affordability.
Of course.
Yes.
Affordability. I haven't heard that word in Albany.
Me neither.
Speaking of Albany, you've been in Albany now how long? Let's count your days in the legislature.
I moved back to Albany in 2017, but 2016.
Okay, so about 10 years?
Yeah.
What do you like about Albany? You didn't know I was going to ask you all this stuff. So I didn't want it to be, I wanted to catch you on the spot because I didn't want you to have to think about this. Like, so let's start with, so you were in the Senate for a while.
Yeah. I didn't know we were going personal.
Well, we are.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a podcast. What else?
All right.
Who did you work for?
I started off in the state assembly, working for then Assemblyman Todd Kaminsky, and we went through the 2016 special election where he was running for Dean Skelos' old Senate seat. Won that in April of 2016, which feels like forever ago. Went through a whole general election that year, so 2 elections in 1 year.
And what'd you do for him?
I was his communications director.
For the campaign?
Well, so for the Senate, and
Okay.
then, volunteered for the campaign. So the number of doors that we knocked on, like Todd's a beast.
Old school? Like
Old school.
Grassroots?
Wants
hey.
to knock all of the doors. I learned a lot from him. Knock all the doors, talk to everybody. And then I had, other bosses that I worked for when I was up here in Albany, worked for Jim Gorin. That man would call back any constituent who wanted to speak to him. And that's
All the
that's
chicken
rare,
barbecues,
right?
all the...
Did all of that, but even just kind of the nitty-gritty constituent issues, if someone was having problems with DSS or wanted to complain about, utility costs, or Jim would call them on the phone. Every constituent got a call back from Jim.
I never worked for one, but I knew one like that. Assemblywoman Roanne DeStito, who later went on to be in charge of OGS. And I'd covered politics in Utica, and she was from Utica, Rome. And I've never seen an assembly, and I've been now in Albany for 12 years covering Albany, working in Albany. I've never seen an assembly person or an elected person work that hard. Every chicken barbecue, like you said, every time she was on the phone, she went to school board meetings. I mean, everybody knew of her. And I mean, that's how you get reelected, but she obviously cared.
Yeah,
And-
I think a lot of our legislators don't necessarily get all of the credit. Like up here in Albany,
I was just
we
gonna say,
deal with
there's-
them on a policy side, but they don't get the credit for the amount of work and effort that they put in at home. I mean, they go from Albany on a getaway day and they're back down at a community board meeting or, some kind of,
Sure.
community meeting. talking to their constituents and knowing what is going on the ground and how their constituents are feeling, what's happening in their lives. And I think, they take that back with them here.
I think that's a good point you make because, you deal with them, us specifically on business issues. And if they don't, and care is not the right word, but agree with us, then it's like, okay, well, do we brush them? And we don't, but do people then brush them off, whatever the issue may be, as just somebody who cares about X? But really, they may just disagree with you philosophically or something like that. That doesn't mean they're not working for their constituents, right? Just that didn't particularly jive with either their constituents' beliefs and or their personal beliefs. But I would agree with you that there's a lot of...
They work very hard.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, because they're 2 years like like Congress. So, I mean, the minute they get elected, you have to raise money. And you have a re-election in 2 years. It's not like governor 4 years. No. I think one congressman said something like, the minute I get reelected, I have to raise $25,000 a week or $20,000 a week or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Until next reelection.
Yeah, they're constantly moving, whether it's, talking to constituents or drafting legislation or, having to dial for dollars, as we like to say.
Okay, so you work for Todd Comiskey. Now he's in the Senate, picking up your story, now he's in the Senate. What's the difference working on the inside and now as a lobbyist? I mean, I know the obvious differences, but to you personally, was there something that you liked better on one or the other, or anything you miss?
It's a pretty seamless process. I think you always miss being able to go onto the Senate floor. Like when you walk into that Senate chamber, I mean, even sitting in the gallery, like it's just very kind of glamorous, right? I used to hide in the fireplace, so that was always my spot. But
it's very grandiose, and
it's grandiose. You feel kind of like
you feel important.
Yeah.
And as I had an LCA, you have the pass, you can go on the Senate floor.
I missed the pass, yeah. So that's probably the thing that I miss the most is in the past, having to wait in line to
now
get in.
Now you have to take your belt off to get in.
Go to the
and
concourse. Over caucus weekend, I was like, man, I really missed that pass
right?
because the line was so long, right?
Yeah. But you see how policy was done on both sides now. So I think that's you could give a perfect example of like how people work together.
I think that we all have a similar process, right? So coming from the legislature and always looking at, legislation that we were drafting based off of a constituent issue, the same thing rings true here. I'm taking the feedback from our membership and going in and saying,
they're the constituent.
They're my constituent, yeah.
So what did...
Now I'm on edge. Like, what else are you going to
You're a little nervous now. Yeah. Well, what I'd like to ask you, so we had Assemblyman Boras on. I'd like to ask, but you live here now. So let's reverse it. Let's go back to Long Island. What do you miss about Long Island?
Ooh, the beach. I lived
so
in Long Beach.
By the way, I can't fathom Long Island. I just know that once you get on Long Island, it takes about 7 days to get wherever you want to go.
Well, yeah. And
with traffic.
Which is probably what prompted me moving back up to Albany. Grew up in the Capital Region. And so, I didn't have any family on Long Island and had gotten to Long Island through New York City. And just, it's so hard to get upstate. And that's probably
like physically
why.
In a car,
physically
right?
in a car, you have to go through all of the city traffic. There's no easy way to get back up here.
So which beach?
I'm sure Long Beach.
So there's Long Beach.
Long Beach.
And then as Jones Beach, and I'm going to sound
Jones
stupid.
Beach next. Yep. So Long Beach, Lido Beach, Jones Beach. You can keep going out.
So how do you choose a beach, though? I mean, you got 5 choices.
Well, I lived in the district.
I see. So you had.
So I lived in the district, moved out to Long Beach. We lived on Main Street, but I got a bike. I would bike along the boardwalk or take a walk on the boardwalk, and it was kind of in the middle, so I could go back to the Bay Area or I could walk over to the shore.
Was this when you were married or dating?
No, we were married.
You were married, okay.
Yeah.
And he was okay moving up?
Yeah, he was traveling a lot. He worked at a big firm in New York City, so he was traveling a lot. It was actually easy because JFK was right there, so when he had to get on a plane, it was easier than... No. When we lived in this when we lived in Long Island, Will worked for Cleary Gottlieb, which is a big law firm in the city. So he was doing a lot of different white collar investigations. So he was like jet setting to Vancouver or Brazil.
Gotcha. He was, okay. I thought you said he was taking a plane up to Albany. I was like, wow.
No. Yeah.
Bougie.
No.
Don't like that commute that much, huh?
No.
So is the food, like, so New York City's known for its pizza. Yeah. Is the pizza as good in Long Island?
Well, I wouldn't know because.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I keep forgetting.
Me and my gluten-free pizza.
The dietary restriction.
Yeah. So actually, right below our apartment was an Italian deli, Sorrento's.
I bet that smells good.
Yeah. So what I really used to like to get from Sorrento's was they had these stuffed mozzarella balls, and so they either have olives or like cherry tomatoes in it. So get like some of that and like bring it to the beach. You got to eat it before, But
you can't go to the beach probably till what, like September?
Well, for local summer, yeah. September is great. I had a beach pass. We'd go to the beach and walk around and, you got to relax sometime, Pat.
Well, we have the Hudson River here.
You know that.
So I hope you
let's,
guys...
Let's talk about you and your vacations.
No. You're the one in that seat. All right, so you've been here now, what, 3 years? I keep losing...
At the Business Council, yes. Yeah, 3 years.
So everything to me is BC. There's before COVID, and then there's AC after COVID. And then everything just kind of runs together. Do you notice that? Like, I don't know if you're in the same... Then you have kids on top of that.
Yeah.
And then and then session starts, and then when session's done, you're working on reports and everything else, and it's one big...
cycle.
That's right.
It's a big cycle.
I wish we had a beach for you up here, but we don't.
Me too. But, get to go up to Lake George or Saratoga Lake. We have a lot of nice things up here.
And you're from here?
I'm from here.
And you wanted to be here?
Yes.
Are you leaving anytime soon to go back to Long Island?
No.
Okay. Because of the traffic?
Pretty much, the roads. Yeah.
All right, so let's put a bow on this. We have an event coming up in New York City.
We do.
Wrap it up here. What would success look like for us, for the Business Council with this report next year?
Success, I think, is a moving target with this report. I think we're always going to keep going. I think success is, some action on, regulatory reform this year, which seems like it's happening, and really broadening the tent and making sure that we keep this front of mind for everyone, and that it's not just a specific business issue, right? Like it's not just a financial services issue, but it's an issue for housing, it's an issue for nonprofits, it's an issue for small businesses, and it's really impacting our economy. And so if we can take some steps in order to reverse some of the trends that we're seeing without migration and taxes and regulation, and really make New York, more affordable place to live and do business, I think those are baby steps, right? But everything's a baby step. The cumulative effect will ultimately be there. So I think it's a moving target. I know this isn't the answer you want, but there's 40 recommendations in there. We're always going to keep moving, and I think as the ball, keeps moving along, we'll react, we'll adjust, and I think ultimately if we can have a New York that's improved in terms of its business climate, not be 50th, if we could slowly move up the rankings, I think we'll be a step in the right direction.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
But achievable.
I think so. Yeah, everyone wants to be here. Just need to make it easier.
Chelsea Lemon, Senior Director of Government Affairs.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Connect podcast, produced by the Business Council, the voice of employers in New York State.